Hello, possums, and greetings from tomorrow in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, in this video, I mainly want to focus on what's coming up in August, but we've got a couple of key and critical issues to look at first. Of course, the Ghislaine Maxwell saga goes on. We have a situation whereby the Department of Justice sends its own delegation to have a meeting with a convicted felon for 2 days to hash out a deal with said convicted felon. Oh, sorry, it's the dogs. Look, the dogs don't live in the house. We live in a kennel. Settle down. Look, yeah. So, what is she actually going to divulge, or is she going to say, I'm staring down the barrel of a 20-year sentence? What do you want me to say? And I'll say it. Like, what's she actually going to talk about with this? Let's have a look here. Flying out of the blocks with Ghislaine. Can any French speakers please correct my pronunciation? But I know it's not Ghislaine. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, let's have a look. What she offered up. And Todd Blanche, who went in, personal attorney to the Yeti, which says he has to be bent as a fishhook before you even start. But what's Ghislaine going to offer up? Let's have a look. Oh, she's keeping some things close to her chest. Let's get a couple of these. Oh, Ghislaine. Now let's get underwater and coerce and manipulate. Okay, let me work through these for you. This is her, with the boxes of stuff. Where do those boxes live normally? What's in the boxes? Why haven't, some legals got those, but maybe they did have them and she got them from her lawyers. Anyway, this is her speaking up. This is a poison chalice, but also it's more than this tells me she would be prepared to lie. I don't think that's the worst thing she's ever done, mind you, but you know, she also, this gives her a bit of power in the sense people are starting in Magosphere because they're so desperate to get back on board. Um, Now she's becoming a bit of a folk hero in some perverse way or something. She's got the goods. She's got the goods. Now, the secrecy. Is she holding things back with this hermit card? Or is that part of what they're asking her to do, is to keep quiet about other things? Oh, I just heard clear as day, Dems. She's sitting on Dem names. Now, we know, well, at least we've heard over the years from several sources that Clinton was a frequent flyer. I don't think it stops there. I'm beginning to think this. This could be very bad for the Dems. Coerce and manipulate. I think this is a mutual arrangement where she could be very destructive for the Yeti and also he can ruin her life even further than it has sunk. So it's like that. But it's careful what you wish for because there would have been dozens of high flying Dems too. So I think, we've got to be careful and say, oh, release the Epstein tapes. Do you really want to know? Um, I don't think Obama's got anything to worry about. He strikes me and always has as a clean skin, scandal free. But that does raise the question here of Obama. So during the week, because he's been attacked, and now the Yeti wants to put Oprah and Kamala and Beyonce, wants to arrest everybody. And Obama had a chance to speak out. And in my feed, it said, oh, Obama blasts Trump, Obama shreds Trump, Obama destroys Trump. And I leapt on, and he was very dignified. And no, no, no. I was hoping he was going to say, this is the man who has destroyed the reputation of the United States across the world, who is in the process of destroying the economy, who brings in these barbaric laws in our name, etc. No, no, way too dignified. It's a problem with the Dems. The Dems generally, I won't go on about it because I will return to this subject in other videos inevitably, but you can feel the tension now in a good way. So there's, I think, 4 mayoral races where progressives are crushing it. Right. So where are they? So we know about New York and Mamdani, but there's also Minneapolis, Seattle, and maybe Albuquerque or somewhere. Progressives are really doing a good job. So it's on a platter. The Dems got to be more radical. And you don't have to be radical everywhere, but where people want it, crave it, and respond to it, that's what the diversity should be about. That in some states they're way more progressive than other states. That should be okay, but there should be a genuine spectrum to the left as well as the right, and we don't have that. It's the middle of the road, right or far right. It drives me insane. So let them off the leash. You can do it, Dems. So now let me look here. Oh, JD Vance. Yes. So, or Shady Pants, as he's referred to in some circles, the whole of the American political discourse has been reduced to name calling, and I'm part of it, but shamelessly so. You've got to clap back where they're at. Yeah. So let's dive in, move on, and have a look at August. Just let me have a look at my notes here. Oh, yes. I think we're better off. We'll go week by week, and I'll draw 3 normal cards and one of the oracle cards for each week of August. Because don't you love the reports from Scotland? Oh, there's protests wherever he goes. I think he's finished that trip now. He might be still golfing. But again, why aren't the Dems putting images up of him golfing every 5 minutes? You know, he railed against Obama, who played golf a couple of times. Let's have a look. Okay, week 1 for August. Week 1 for August. Now, what I'll do is I'll put them face down first while I get these ready. Well, they're quite a fat deck, these. Let's have a look. Week 1 for August. Week 1 for August. Okay. Here we go. All right, now, whose victory is this? Look, I'm wondering about this. Now, this is when the taco tariff scenario kicks in because is it the 1st or 2nd of August that we've lost track of how much the tariffs are. I've lost track of when they come on stream in different industries, and I'm sure I'm not alone. But it's almost amusing. I think this is a victory that he will claim, that the emperor will claim. However, people will see through it. Surely, please, please, I beg all the gods that people are waking up when it hits their purse. The Queen of Cups is not happy. So he's going to say, expect announcements like, oh, he'll do the taco and he'll put off most of them because he does not have one deal, not one deal. But he'll say it's massively successful. Billions of dollars have been pouring in to where? But pouring. This is him. Week 1, we're going to hear a lot of this, but people aren't fooled. And now an oracle card, social media are going to eat this up. Okay. He's in trouble now. The right are moving away. And regardless of what happens with the Epstein stuff now, I think most of these young men were embarrassed more than anything, being caught out by someone who's so obviously a drongo, as we'd say in Australia, or a wanker, or, we do have good swear words. Thanks to the UK, we derive a lot of our slang from the UK. But because he's an epic wanker, social media is going to melt down in relation, I think, to tariff news. Okay, now let's have a look because it's inevitable August is going to be massive because he keeps pretending that the tariffs are in some way bringing countries to heel, and people are running away. They're not just creeping away, they're not walking away, they are running away from doing business here. Week 2. Oh, face down then. Give these a shuffle. Before I read week 2, let's talk about copper for a minute. Now, Australia is a commodity-driven country, right? We love digging holes in the ground and polluting rivers and polluting aquifers and polluting the ocean because we love mining, right? That's what we're good at. So let's keep doing it. Now, copper. Copper's used. I sort of knew it was an essential metal, but until all this saga, I didn't realize that it really is in everything, every house, every car, every piece of equipment that we use, high technology, low technology, everything uses copper. And Canada, having been subject to the 50% tariffs on top of everything else, are now rerouting the copper because what used to happen was Canada would produce its copper. It would then be sent to Asia for refining, back to Canada, and then to the US. Now, we have other issues with this global thing in terms of the amount of shipping and everything across the world's oceans. But nonetheless, all these big industries are like this. You cannot pull them apart. So now Canada is bypassing the US as it is in so many ways, also on copper. That's going to really impact every industry. And I suspect the US is going to have to come to us for copper. Anyway, here we go. Here we go, week 2, August. Well, return on investment here. So we're going to see new partnerships in August, unlikely partnerships. Ah, dare to hope, dare to dream. I'm hoping this could be the Dems sort of, you know, waking up a bit if they want to keep the youth vote or get the youth vote or do anything with the youth vote and keep the voters they've got. This is a Dem feel in a good way, joining together. Maybe they'll start to realize now there's four successful progressive. Their strategists have to look at this stuff at some point. I'm hoping that'll happen in week two. This, I think, is generic wounding for the White House and the GOP. They can't keep shrugging off their disastrous policies. They're absolutely hopeless, and I think it's going to start to bite in week two. And things are going to come home to roost. This is about the tariffs, I think. This is about money, and this is about expect big price rises in week two. Because, like I said, he'll taco on some of them, others will go through and expect things to rise. Here's okay. Politicians and government. I think week two, the honeymoon is over. He's got away with a lot. And I think this might be GOP pulling away. They've got to go back to their MAGA-file electorate who are losing hospitals, who are losing jobs, who are losing SNAP, who are losing other benefits. Do. I think this is them. This was the Dems, I think, getting their act together on some small way. This is only a beginning. It's like a seeding card. This, I think, it's like the question I'm hearing is, who is a Republican? So what's left of the Republican Party, who, in my mind and my view, were always bad news, but they look illustrious now looking back compared with the maggots. That question, I think there's going to be a push to reclaim the Republican Party from the worst of the worst. Don't know how they'll go, but I think we can expect to see that for the first time. So remember, a lot left in the early days, like the Joe Scarboroughs and the Lincoln Project guys, that included George Conway and Rick Wilson and all of them. Why they were ever Republicans, I've got no idea. But I think this is going to be more from Congress. I think because they're starting, they've got pushed both ways, and because they're jellyfish and spineless, right, they got pushed by MAGA, even though a lot of them knew it was a bad idea, so they let themselves get pushed. Now they're getting their voters pushing back, going, but what do you mean we're losing Medicare and our veterans are being ignored and abandoned? And so they're now the meat in the sandwich. Or not even the meat, they're the spam, or whatever you call it over there. Okay, week three. Now, bear in mind, I don't do big weather. So these readings could look really stupid if there's a major hurricane or something that supersedes it. So please understand I don't do weather. This is outside of that. But it is summer, it is the Northern Hemisphere, and so expect significant weather events in August for sure. Let's have a look at week three. Week three. Mm. Now, tomorrow I'm going on Petty Boots with Jen Lynn, Johnny, and Becca. So that's 8 p.m. EST. I only get to do it a few times a year, but it's fun. Okay, that'll be on Jen Lynn's channel tomorrow. Okay, week three. All right, let's have a look. Week, so awesome. Yeah. Well, here we go. I think we're going to see more radical job losses in week three. Now, yes, I was the first person to name this the mercenary in political tarot, and that's caught on. We tend to feed off each other with these cards and everything. But I think that this is more the traditional meaning of the Knight of Pentacles, which is the loyal, dependable, solid worker. And I think they're in trouble. I think people's hearts are going to be broken with losing what they thought was secure work for a whole myriad of reasons that are tariff related. You can see how the tariff stuff has been happening on the back burner, but it's actually going to begin to distort the economy in week 3 of August. And this is a reaction, and people can be pushed a long way, but sometimes they come back. And I think this is a good card to see in week 3. I think this is connected, you see, job losses across industry, which is already happening. If you watch any of these videos, you see huge job cuts in the tourist industry, huge job vacancies in all sorts of related industries, truck drivers, storehouses. It ripples on, retail's on its knees. It doesn't matter where you look, job losses, right? So how that impacts people, but this is the fight back and the pushback. Not a minute too soon. Week 3, replace or exchange. I think this is like advice in the sense of this has all changed our spending patterns, even here in Australia, because the world is impacted by the Yeti's fantasy on tariffs. There is not another economist in the world except Scott Bessant and what's his face, Ron Navarro, who are in league, who thinks tariffs are a good idea. You cannot find one, even conservative economists in other countries, even independent economists, even left-wing economists, every old school economists, new cutting edge into modern monetary theory economists. No one thinks it's a good idea, like no one. Scott Bessant, let me know, because apparently he was a real economist before he took this job. He looks sedated to me on screen. What do you think about this, Mr. Bessant? Oh, well, it'll be all right. I'm sorry, this is critical stuff. And I digress before I get to this too. That reminds me in terms of how reporters handle these people. Now, I deeply understand how compromised the press corps of America is, how people are eliminated from the press corps if they don't fawn and kiss his sandals. I get that. However, American journalists have never been, to my mind, to my Australian observation, that cutting. They've always been deferential to the president. Yes, Mr. President. Australian journalists aren't like that, and our leaders don't expect them to be like that. And so when the Yeti was asked in a news conference, have you considered pardoning Miss Maxwell? And he said, oh, I haven't thought about it. An Australian journalist would have gone, what do you mean you haven't thought about it? This could be the most consequential decision you've made in 2 presidencies, and you expect us to believe you haven't thought about it. Or if you haven't thought about it, doesn't that mean you're totally inadequate to fill this position as leader because you've failed to prioritize this really important decision? They just smack them back. Ugh. Anyway, coming back from the digression, replace or exchange. I think this is what we should all be doing with everything. It's like e-waste. We all have 14 phones and bits and pieces and old computers under the bed and in the drawer and stuff. Now, I know here in Australia we do have e-waste disposal, but they're not easy to find. They're not accessible. I think every big supermarket should have an e-waste thing that gets picked up once a day or once a week and goes and gets properly recycled or something. Make it easier for people. Let me know in the comments, is e-waste easy and accessible where you are? Because we waste precious minerals that are finite by either just keeping them and not using them or throwing them in the bin, which is what some people do. I can't bear it. Huh? So replace or exchange whatever you've got. I think we need to communicate with our neighbours either literally or figuratively or even online. How can we barter? How can we exchange? Right? So you might be a retired teacher. You could do free tutoring for 2 hours a week for a neighbour's 12-year-old who's struggling with literacy or numeracy or something. You could do that and they mow your lawn. I think we have to look for how to replace and exchange. I think that's a really interesting expression. More of it, I say. Okay. So week 4, August. Week 4, August. What's ahead for us? Week 4, August. Ooh, wow. Week 4, August. Now, these are so fun, these oracle cards. Now let's have a look here. 1, 2. All right. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We're getting into the heavy, interesting turning point, life-changing, world-changing, not before time, big stuff. Week 4. Does that mean the Yeti might not be here in September? I couldn't possibly say, but it's big. So this is the card of confusion. So here's who's confused in the sense, obviously we all are, in that we can't believe everything happens at such a rapid pace. But I think this might be of legal consequence. It could it could also be tariff confusion. It can be ICE overreaching by this. If they keep this up through August, it's not going down well. People in Magaland could be confused. Oh, I voted for him to do this. I didn't think he'd do that. Corporate Dems are confused. What do you mean we have to consider progressives? Everyone's confused. Everyone's confused. And you'd have to say most of all the Yeti, because he's so NFI, as we sometimes say here in Australia, no fucking idea. He's so NFI. But expect confusion. This is a shattering revelation that has to be had. This could be semi-release of Epstein files that is going to be uncomfortable. Let's just say that for all parties. But this is the Wheel of Fortune. By the end of August, it's a tipping point, And it will be obvious that there are no trade deals. It will be obvious the average American pays the tariffs. It will become obvious that ICE are a Gestapo unit. It will become obvious that Putin has no intention of stopping doing what he's doing or whatever. So there has to be a shift. And so this says to me, with the mermaid, with the upward shift towards higher things, I think this is a very positive card for all of us in that sense. Now, what is this last card for the Oracle? This supports what I'm saying. Support role, the Jean Bonnet cards. Support role. I think that again, like that exchange and replace, is talking to us. I think this is too. Yes, you may well be exhausted, strung out, frayed to the max. But if you can look after yourself enough to just support one other person for 1 hour, one day, and help them through their horrendous day, you get out of your own zone for a minute and can help someone else. And that is so important because a little bit of kindness goes such a long way. And what was that quote? I'm thinking, was it Joan Baez? God, now we're going back. Intrepid viewers who remember the fine print of Joan Baez lyrics. I think she said, but she might have been quoting someone else historically, action is the antidote to despair. And I think that's what's happening through August. There's going to be more of the same plus other major distractions and horror. But it's time to react. Well, not react's the wrong word. Respond differently and not just react. You can either take it as another blow and another frustration, another horror. Say, okay, there's going to be more. So how am I going to respond? How can I help other people respond? I think that's why we're here. I really, really, really do. All right, beloveds. So I'll see you soon. Take care and look after yourself and take care of someone else. Not full time. Just be nice. I know you are. You're the nice ones. I'm preaching to the choir. Lots of love. Ciao.